I think the pandemic has been terrible for that blurring of those lines. So, shutting down and walking away and knowing that actually that time away is probably the most valuable thing you can do for your business. It's not working, 16 or 18 hours a day. That is not going to help. The ability of being able to walk away and come back in and look at things differently.
Welcome to Push to Be More with me, your host, Matt Edmondson. This is a show that talks about the stuff that makes life work. And to help us do just that, today I am chatting with the Ivers, as we affectionately call her, Chris Ivers from Pharmaco, about where she has had to push through, what she does to recharge her batteries and to be, as well as what she's doing to be more. Now, the show notes and transcript from our conversation will be available on our website, pushtobemore.com. And whilst you're there, if you haven't done so already, sign up for our newsletter, and each week we will email you the links along with the notes from the shows straight to your inbox automatically. It's totally amazing, it's totally free, so make sure you sign up for that. Now, this episode is brought to you by Orion Media, which helps entrepreneurs and business leaders set up and run their own successful podcasts. Chris, do you know what? I have found running my own podcast to be, it's just amazing, really. Mainly because I like to talk. It opens doors to amazing people like nothing else I've seen. I've built networks, made friends, had a platform to champion my customers, my team, my suppliers. And I think just about any entrepreneur or business leader should have a podcast because it's had such a huge impact on my own business, which of course sounds wonderful in theory, but in reality there's a whole problem, setup, technical, distribution, strategy. I mean, the list goes on. And as I said, I just love to talk to people, but I don't really enjoy that other stuff. So Orion Media takes it all off my plate. I do what I'm good at, and they brilliantly take care of the rest. So if you're wondering if podcasting is a good marketing strategy for your business, do connect with them at orionmedia.com. That's AURION media.com. And of course, they will be linked in the show notes, as well as on our website, pushtobemore.com. So yes, big shout out to Orion Media. Now, Chris the Ivers. I wonder if Chris's middle name is the. It should be. Has been a director of her own advertising and brand strategy for over 15 years and understands what it takes to build a successful business. Get the people right, give them an inspiring vision, and create teams that know where they are heading and feel passionate about what they are achieving is everything that Chris strives to deliver. If you get this right, according to Chris, growth follows, which we all know to be true. Now, what you don't know to be true, unless you do know Chris, is that she is an unusual combination of left and right brain thinking with a career that is, one that can only be described as creative. One where new ideas, complex problem solving, and critical thinking are a daily occurrence. She is born and bred in New Zealand, loves the country, and believes that business can deliver not only economic success, but social success too, and she works super hard to help achieve success for New Zealand and her fellow Kiwis. Chris, it's great to have you on the podcast. Thank you for being here. How are we doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me, Matt. Always lovely to chat to you.
I do enjoy our conversations, Chris, I'm not going to lie.
So do I.
Yeah, absolutely. For those, if it's not completely obvious, Chris and I do know each other. And we've known each other, I was trying to think the other day, we've known each other for a good old while now, 4 or 5 years, I would have thought.
Oh, at least. It's been a while.
Yeah. And we're still talking, you're still talking to me, so that's always a bonus,
I know,
right?
Amazing.
Absolutely. Now, we met through the fantastic Simon O'Shaughnessy, who has been on the podcast. You work with Chandra Salvadori, who is also in Pharmaco, and you are currently working with Chandra in Pharmaco, and you work with Simon. So it is all a bit, it's all a bit incestuous, isn't it? This little community, and it's great actually. Honestly, Chris, I've been looking forward to this. So thank you for being here, all the way from New Zealand, beaming in from your office with a very dull background.
It is really dull, and I'm concerned that I've got a photocopying machine there, which, can I just say, never gets used. Never. it there as a shrine.
Yeah, as a relic to what
As
once
a relic.
was. Does it do faxes too? Does it fax?
Yeah. No, but do you know what? We still have a fax machine in the building
Wow.
because in the health sector, they still fax. I find it unbelievable, but it's true.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? It's
The
crazy.
slowest moving sort of sector of the market, I think. is
Yeah.
health.
Okay. Well, for those that don't know, and why would they actually, those listening to the show, but just explain your day-to-day, what Pharmaco is, and why you would have a fax machine for the healthcare industry.
So Pharmaco is a healthcare company, predominantly sales and marketing, and we have a number of products, right from pharmaceuticals through to medical devices. We operate in diabetes, fertility, helping women through menopause, very important. We also have, we have emergency care products. I mean, we've got quite a vast range of products, and we supply those into New Zealand and Australia.
Yeah, no, you guys do a great job. Actually, do a great job. It's a great company, but it's fair to say, Chris, as the bio says, you've not always worked with Pharmaco. You've had your own agency, sort of creative agency. What was that? What was that all about?
Well, I came through the big global advertising agencies, and that was amazing. Absolutely loved it. You know, worked overseas in the UK, as it turns out, and I was an art director and a creative director, and it was fun. It was so much fun. I got to the point where I really I felt like I could do things a bit differently. And so I set up my own business, and I was really lucky to have some amazing clients, some really big clients in a really diverse sector, sort of, construction. For some bizarre reason, I ended up working with a lot of construction companies. I really don't know how that happened.
Because it's right up your street, right?
I know, you'd think that, wouldn't you? And I used to turn up to these meetings with these big burly sort of construction guys, and I'd sort of rock in, and they'd be like, who is this person? So that was kind of cool. I did a lot in tourism. I've worked on cars. I mean, just every sector. And a tiny little portion of that was in the health sector, a little bit as well. So it was a great time. I ended up being a lot more involved in brand strategy, because the minute you kind of get into businesses and you're communicating out to the market, you've got to really understand that business. Then you end up doing a deep dive into that business. And so I ended up doing a lot of sort of structural work around brands that actually fed through into how the actually businesses were structured. Mm-hmm. So it got me very, very interested in how businesses were run and better ways to run businesses. And I guess that's sort of why I ended up in a business out of the agency world, because I suppose it was just a natural place to go.
It was sort of natural progression, wasn't it, for you to sort of go and do that? And so you had your own advertising agency, right? You had your own creative agency. Yep. What was it like going from these big agencies into running your own sort of, I guess, smaller agency?
Yeah, well, you get really, I mean, you're a lot more hands-on with stuff, I found. So as a creative person in a big agency, you're almost in like a bubble. So it's a very happy bubble, but you're just not touched by anything else. You don't understand the wider context of what's going on. I think the minute that you run your own business, you suddenly have an appreciation that it's not just about doing the work. There's also about running the business and, having to manage staff and go and get new business and who you are as a business and how you market yourself. And so it's very satisfying, but it's a lot more than I think most people. And in New Zealand, we're classics for kind of going, well, I'm quite good at this. Lots of people in New Zealand start small businesses. And but I think a lot of people don't realise what's involved in running a business. And I have, to this day, the greatest respect for anybody that runs their own business, because I know how hard it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can totally agree. Yeah. It's a funny one, isn't it, when you run your own business, because you do have to do everything. And I'm just smiling to myself because I'm imagining actually the one company that most creatives enjoy being is probably the advertising agency, or the advertising world, because that you get to be super creative there, right? That's the whole purpose of being there.
You do, but I think there's a bit of a misconception with agencies, where they think they're just these wildly creative, out of control businesses, but they're actually the most structured, well-run businesses of anything I've ever come across. And I think
Okay.
their customer service is incredible, and the
Mm,
reason for that is because, at the end of the day, they have to deliver to a deadline. The
mm,
worst thing you can do in an agency is miss a deadline, because it's a missed radio ad or a TV ad, or, so it's just like the worst crime. And I think as creatives, you're actually kind of very structured in the way you think. It's not like, you're a fine artist where you can just decide what you're going to do and whatever muse takes you. You're actually given a brief. You've got very tight constraints. You have to deliver something, a message, and you've got to be creative, and you've got to
mm.
do it within a time frame. So you've got to know how to walk in the door and
Yeah.
kind of turn it on, and that is just a real skill to learn. And I think the other thing is, you've got to learn to walk out the door and turn it off, because otherwise that's where
Okay.
you end up with that huge burnout that a lot of creative people get. I think that was one of my greatest successes, being able to walk out the door and leave it behind, and
Right.
then go away and do stuff that kind of refreshed me and was important, and then come back in the next day. And we always used to talk about the overnight test. We would come up with heaps of ideas, and we'd have them pasted all over our walls and scribbles all over the walls, and you'd finish the day going, I have no idea where this is going. I don't know if any of this is good, and nothing fits together as a campaign.
Mm.
And then you leave, you walk away, you come back in the next morning, and literally you just look on the wall and go, rubbish, rubbish, rubbish. That's the campaign. Move that over there, change that. And suddenly it just came together like that.
Right.
It was really, so that walking away was a huge part of that creative process, but it was very structured,
Mm. Yeah.
so it's creativity, but in a very structured way. I
And
just
you
don't
have to
think
have
people
both, don't you?
understand how amazing that is within an agency.
Mm. Yeah, it is. You do have to have both, as you say. And I think if you can get the structure, and if you miss one, you've got a problem. If you miss
Yeah,
creativity
yeah.
and you're all structure, you've got a problem. If you're all creativity and you don't have the structure, you've got a problem.
Yeah,
Um,
so you do, and that's why, I sort of jokingly say I'm very left and right brain, because there's a part of you that's just got to turn on that creativity and
mm,
be out there and think in a really different way. But then there's this other side of you that's got to, be process and deliver, and on
mm,
time frames and on budget as well. It's not like
yeah,
we just, give us unlimited budgets. So,
which is always a shame. It's always
which
a
is
shame.
pretty, and it was always very disappointing. And you're always pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, it's just a really different. So I guess that's how you develop that two sides to you, which is
yeah.
helpful in business, I
Mm.
think, to have both of those sort of skills.
Yeah, it is. And I like your overnight test theory as well, where you leave the office, you do something different,
Yeah,
and then you come back the next day and look at the whole thing again with fresh
yeah,
eyes, and just that ability to walk away for 12 hours, do something completely different. What
yeah.
sort of things would you do, just out of curiosity?
I've always been into my sport and my exercise. So I'd go for a run, or I'd go for a walk, or I'd play some sport. That for me was always the big release.
Mm,
I think particularly in those days, just hanging out with friends, going for a nice glass of wine somewhere. But for me, I just didn't think about it. And I know a lot of creative people had a real problem with that. And they used to have little notepads beside their bed, and they'd wake up in the middle of the night, write down. And I never did that.
mm,
I was never that person. And I think actually that was my strength, is
yeah,
that ability to come in and look at something from a completely different viewpoint the next day was huge.
mm,
Because it's very rare. There's on a rare occasions that you get given a brief and something just pops immediately.
yeah, yeah.
It's normally a real process that takes a lot of time.
Hmm. I think it's the same when running a business, though, to be fair. You've got to wrestle with a whole bunch of different things, don't you? And sometimes you get that intuition which says, no, this is the right answer straight away, but this is definitely not all the time.
No,
And I think it's one of the things for me that's come out of the pandemic is actually in the morning, at some point during that morning, I will take a walk for like 30, 40 minutes around a local park, and I'll come back home. And I'm convinced it's probably the most productive 40 minutes of the day.
Oh, I would totally agree with that. And I still do that. In fact, I have walking meetings with some of my team members because just to actually get out of the office and stretch your legs. And I did used to, if I was working during the day, I got kind of that stuck feeling, I would go for a walk. I'd take my phone with me. I wouldn't go with the intention of coming up with any ideas. I'd just go with the intention to kind of let my brain go and wander off wherever it felt was a good place to wander off. But invariably, suddenly ideas would start to pop in, and then I'd just record them on my phone. And my best ideas recorded on my phone, wandering around the streets of various places. Because, I say it's you don't go with the intention. You just go to free your mind and just let it go. And always found some. And I think in business, I really wish, and I think the pandemic has been terrible for that blurring of those lines. To shutting down and walking away, and knowing that actually that time away is probably the most valuable thing you can do for your business. It's not working 16 or 18 hours a day. That is not going to help. It's the ability of being able to walk away and come back in and look at things differently.
Very true.
I found even during the pandemic, I had real process around. I'd get up in the morning, I'd get dressed for work, I'd do the makeup, the hair, the whole thing.
Really?
I would go to work, and when I finished, I would shut down, close the door, go and put my track pants on and finish. I tried to put some real boundaries in there because I think it's really important.
Yeah, it is. And like you say, I think it has blurred a lot, hasn't it, with the pandemic. So everyone's got used to working at home now. And especially, I mean, I appreciate I'm one of the privileged few. My office is at the bottom of the garden, where I'm recording right now from my little home office, which is just a workshop down the bottom of the garden, which is great. So when you close the door and you go into the house, you can separate the two things. But I appreciate I was very, fortunate in that sense, because not everybody can do that. People have got desks in their dining room. And that for me would just be very problematic, because I need that physical shut, or that physical distance between work and home.
And I think, like I said, I don't think people realise that refreshing, that giving your brain other things to think about that are not work are as valuable for your business or what you do as sitting at your desk and ploughing through, stuff. I worry that blurring of the lines has become just so common. I mean, when I shut down, I mean, I'm happy to work a long day, but when I shut down, I don't check emails. My team know if there's something urgent, they've actually got to text me, because I won't be looking at my emails. I don't look at my emails during the weekend.
And to be fair, I don't look at my emails anytime. The team really criticise me for that. Do you check your emails? No, not really. I
love how people are so surprised. They can run into your office and go, "Did you get the email I sent?" And went, "No." But you're here now. You could just tell me.
Let's have a conversation. I'm much better at that. Now we use Slack internally, and if people people use that, whereas email, I struggle with email. I'm not going to lie.
I hate. All my team know I hate. I even set up if you CC me, I will delete that email without reading it.
So top tip: never CC Chris into an email.
Don't CC me on an email, because I'm just not going to read it. Because what are you sending it to me for? You can come and tell me about that in our weekly meetings.
No, I don't. I've got better things to do. It's just fair play. So you've got this sort of left-right brain thinking. You've got your advertising agency. You've left the big ad partners. I assume your advertising agency, you'd moved back to New Zealand at this point. You weren't living in the UK, right?
Yep, set it up in New Zealand. Yep.
So you've come back home. You've run your business. How did it go? Were there any major issues that you had to sort of face during that time?
I think we went through the global financial meltdown while I was running my business.
2008.
2008, oh my goodness. And of course, what happened is everyone pulled their budgets for their marketing and their advertising, which, is proven to be the worst thing that you can do, and that the people that sustain those budgets actually come out the other side a long way ahead. That's just traditionally what people do. They just tighten everything up. So that was really, really challenging for us, and probably one of the hardest periods I think I've ever been in business.
Wow.
Just knowing that you are responsible for paying the salaries of your staff, and that they've got families and then they've got mortgages, and then you're responsible for paying all the other bills that go with it. I think when you know that just things are tightening up, and you can't, because it's a time that we weren't really sure what was going to happen. How bad would it get? How long would it take? Would we bounce out of it? That was really challenging. And for us, we ran really close to the edge, really close to the edge. And it's also the time that I was most proud of, because we made calls, we brought our, costs down. We just kept pitching. We used every network and everything that we had, and we just kept going out there, and we slowly pulled ourselves out. And I guess it's probably the thing I'm most proud of. And knowing that you've gone that close, anyone that's had a business, I think you think, wow, I could probably cope with most things now, because you're facing, and that's why I felt so much for people during the pandemic who were in that situation through no fault of their own, where their businesses went to the wall. I just really felt for those people, because I knew what it was like, and I know the stress that was involved in feeling something that's completely outside your control. And it's not because you run your business badly, it's because of circumstances and choices made by governments, etc. So I just felt, and I knew personally a lot of people going through that. So challenging time. Glad that I faced it, but very glad that I got out of it as well.
That's really interesting, isn't it? It's a common theme, I find, Chris, amongst certainly amongst leaders that have been around and gone through a few things, right? Whereby the challenges that we go through are both hard and rewarding all at the same time. It's a really odd thing, isn't it? You don't want to go through them necessarily, but when you come out of them, you're like, man, that's awesome, what happened there. But I don't know if you choose to go through them again, but then you're grateful for the lessons you learn on the other side, right?
Oh, completely. And I think, look, I say to my team all the time, you don't tend to learn from things that go well. You learn from mistakes, and you learn things that are hard. If you take the time to sit back afterwards and just go back through, actually, again, separate yourself from it and have a really good look at it, that's where you learn stuff. And I learned a lot. Learn about, making sure that your business was really resilient for whatever gets thrown at it. But wouldn't choose to do it again. Prefer not to.
Yeah, prefer not to. But you've got the beautiful thing called hindsight now, right? So you can sit there in your office with a dual background, and you can sort of think about that time. And I guess if you were going to go back a few years, so let's say you're going to go back to 2005, 2006, somewhere around there, would you give yourself any tips or strategies, or would you just sort of say, no, actually, you need to go through this, you need to learn?
I would say get the right people around you, particularly around finance. Get really, really robust advisors around you in that space, so that you're set up to understand how to really run a business from a financial standpoint. Because we, like many people that set up small businesses, we were concentrating on doing great work, getting the clients in the door, but just weren't experienced in that other side of running a business. And so you've got to make sure you've got those right advisors. So a good accountant and a good lawyer, dare I say it, are probably the most critical things you can have. Get those things in place from day one. Yes, you might be a great creative person and the best ideas and, wonderful communications, but if your business is not robust and is not built on those really strong foundations, you at some point will have a problem. You're going to run into an issue. So that would be to anyone starting a business. Just get that in place first. And if you don't know stuff, go and learn it. Go and do a course, and get that under your belt, and then go.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing now. Actually, everything you want to learn, you can learn on YouTube. It's so easy. It wasn't so easy in 2008, but now I think the access to information is. I mean, I think the pendulum swung too far the other day. There's too much information. It's knowing which information to consume is now the problem, right?
I think that's the danger, is that reputable source is now, quite difficult to discern what's right and what's wrong. But look, there's heaps of great courses online, and my attitude is if you see the same thing being repeated in multiple places, it's probably right. But you need to, check a lot of sources to get that, or you just go to somewhere that has got a good reputation.
No, absolutely. I did at uni. My degree was accounting and law.
Oh, and I still seen that.
Did you never? No. And not many people know that. No. There's two things people don't know about me, or two things that people are always surprised about, and that's one of them. So I still maintain that is one of the reasons why I think I've been in business so long. Now, I'm not a qualified accountant at all. I didn't go on to get my accounting qualifications, neither did I pass the bar exam. But that foundation was so good and so helpful, just to give me that sort of understanding as I've gone through life, really. So it's interesting listening to you talk, saying you need a good lawyer and a good accountant, and there's like ripples of cheer all around the world from all the accountants and lawyers going, finally somebody recognises it.
I'm not sure that's a great thing, but it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating, isn't it, how it all works? And I think it's really interesting. And so, I mean, your business almost goes under then because of the financial crisis. So, you cut costs. You sort of hustled. You contacted everybody you knew. What else happened during that time? What sort of out of the box thinking did you guys have to do to make it through?
I think you've got to be really clear where you're positioning yourself and what value you're bringing to a client, and also understand it from their perspective, which I think sometimes agencies are not particularly good at. It's all very well racing and going, we're the most creative, but that's actually not, what a client is looking for. So I think you've got to stand in their shoes and look back and go, what are they actually looking for? So I think we did that really well. I think we thought about who we were and what we brought to the market that was different, but also what the market wanted from us. Because like I say, it's all very well to take a product to market if nobody wants it. It's a complete waste of time. It's the same with any service. You've got to be filling a gap or a need in the market. So I think we did that really well. And that meant that when we went in and pitched for business, we knew who we were, we knew what we could offer, and we knew that was something that clients wanted.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And how did it affect you personally? Because my experience is when the companies when the what's that old phrase? When the going gets tough, the tough get going. Well, I think when the going gets tough, the guy that owns a business is the last person to get paid, right? So, I'm kind of curious. How did you deal with that?
Well, you're right. That's right. You cut your income so that you can pay everyone else, and that's exactly what I did. And I was a single parent at the time, so I had my son and a house and a mortgage, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, how do I keep paying that? So I bought flatmates in, which is not something that you think you're going to do as a single parent, but I thought I still have to pay the bills, so I got flatmates in, and while it wasn't it's not something that I particularly wanted to do, it worked really well. Suddenly you're sharing the bills, you've got another income stream coming in. And so that's what I did. I mean, I guess it's the side hustle, isn't it? It's like, well, business is not giving me enough. I can cut my costs, personally, as I would be doing with my business, but where else? What is another income stream? And so that's what I did. And look, it it got me through that time, and just meant that I could carry on, that I didn't lose my house, and I could still look after my son, because at the end of the day, that was my primary goal, is that he needed to be okay, and we needed a place to live. So did what you needed to do, I guess.
Yeah, no, you do. It's interesting. And again, I mean, the world's in a bit of a financial crisis. It's a bit of financial meltdown, isn't it? There's and the cost of living crisis, certainly here in the UK. I don't know what it's like in New Zealand, but it's crazy over here.
Yeah.
We're in recession, more than likely. Interest rates are going to get. So I think it's the toughest winter that I've known for a long time, including COVID, right? There's a lot going on. So I think it's good to hear how you cope with it back then, because I wonder if that will help people now.
Yeah, I think the worst thing that you can do is not face facts, and I think a lot of people do that. I'm looking at New Zealand, where our mortgage rates are going through the roof. There's a lot of our houses, as you know, Matt, very expensive in New Zealand to buy a house. Unbelievable,
especially in Auckland.
That was fine. Oh, it's crazy. And that was fine while the interest rates were really low, but now they're going through the roof. And so people are, particularly next year, when all those 1 and 2 year mortgages are going to come off, they're going to just have a massive financial shock. But you know what? People are still out there spending crazily. So, and I think it's because they just put their head in the sand and go, I just don't want to face facts. Whereas as scary as that situation, or any situations are, if you face it and come up with a plan and you take control back of the situation, you will feel much better. It's when you don't feel in control, you don't have a plan, and you're getting buffeted by all those wins. Yeah. I think that's when the stress really kicks in. But if you sit back and go, we're going to have a problem, I'm going to face it and I'm going to deal with it, and I'm going to have a plan, then I think you feel so much more empowered. Yeah. And that's kind of what we did, and that's what I did in that situation. And that's what I'd be saying to people now, is to stop ignoring what is going to happen and actually sit down and work out how you're going to deal with it.
No, very good. I think it was Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great. He said one of the things in there was confront the brutal facts, right? And the ability to, and he actually used the example of Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, talking about his time in the concentration camps during the Second World War. And just the ability to survive horrors in life actually comes down to not pretending like something's not real or doesn't exist, but actually just confronting it, confronting the brutal facts, and like you say, making a plan. I remember when our business nearly went under, we did the same thing. I've got young kids. We went and got extra people to come live in our house. You do stuff to sort of, you go, well, this is what we're facing, so we're now going to have to do something to resolve the situation. And I think if you're entrepreneurial, you usually, I say usually because I don't think it's all the time at all, usually you have the ability to face those facts well, because there's this sort of belief that actually there's got to be a way through, right?
Yeah. And I think actually, don't underestimate the side hustle. There is a lot of ways to make extra cash if you think about it. And it's funny, all through my life, I've had part-time jobs, I've run little sort of Airbnb type things. I've even when I was working at Pharmaco, I was still running, a bit of an agency on the side. So often I've had other stuff going on. And I think that's, the ability to go, okay, well, what else is there? What else can I do? You actually have quite a lot of time in your day, if you think about it, and if you kind of deploy it well. The old side hustle is well worth it.
Yeah, it is. And actually, I mean, again, one of the things that you find when there's financial chaos and meltdown, there's lots of opportunities to sort of take advantage of it. The world doesn't close in it. They just become different to maybe what they were. And so very good, very top advice there, Chris. Now, what do you've talked a little bit about sport, going for walks, but what sort of things do you do for your being then, to be this whole idea of sort of resting, relaxation, recharging your batteries? What floats your boat?
I guess being outside, when you're stuck in an office all day, I love being outside. We're very lucky. We've got a beautiful property in the far north of New Zealand. 2 dogs, 2 parrots, 4 hens, quite a few cows scattered around. So I love that whole outdoors, I'm a diver, I go fishing, we go
Yeah.
boating, I go swimming. So I'm into that space for me, that physical environment actually really matters. I
Yeah.
love I do a lot of tramping and stuff like that. So I guess there's that.
Sorry. Explain what you mean by tramping, because
Oh,
I really need that to
is
translate
that
well.
not a good term? Okay.
It could be interpreted in the wrong light, Chris. So I'm giving you an opportunity to clarify.
Right, that's lovely. Walking in the great outdoors.
Okay.
And in New Zealand.
Tramping.
We do have tramping clubs here in New Zealand.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, no, that's fair play. That's fair play.
Right. So I do that, and what else do I do? Like for me, art galleries, because I'm a creative person, I find going to exhibitions and stuff, I absolutely love that. I'm also a big supporter of the theatre, so live theatre. And we're really lucky in Auckland. We've got some, quite small, intimate theatres that you can go, and they're not expensive and they're absolutely amazing. So I guess those are the things that really help me.
Yeah, it's interesting. You've used this phrase a lot, I'm a creative person. And I'm curious, how long did you know this all the time, or is this a sort of a revelation later in life?
I think interesting, it was a revelation. I wouldn't say later in life, but I didn't actually consider myself at all creative. I don't really come from a creative family. And I remember I was at high school, and I was quite good at English, I have to say. And our English teacher, I think I would have been 13 or 14, set us a project where it was, I think you had 20 pages to fill, and it could be anything. You could write poetry or stories. And he said, or you could draw pictures. And I thought, God, that's an easy way that seems like a no-brainer, doesn't it? Fill a few pages, fill a few sketches. How easy is that? It's way easier than writing something. So I did some sketches and some drawings. And he came to me afterwards and he said, are you taking art? And I went, no, I'm rubbish at art. And he said, no, I don't think you are. I just don't think you've ever applied yourself or thought about it. And it was a bit challenging for me because at the time I don't know how it works in the UK, but here you kind of, the first couple of years, you kind of do everything and then you start to specialise. Yeah. I'd already selected, and because I was a relatively bright kid, I was supposed to be picking, English, Latin, French, maths, physics, all that kind of stuff. I know, and that's where I'd sort of gone. And he said, I think you should be taking art. And that was completely contrary. Like none of my other teachers wanted me to do that. So, you talk about one person in your life making a massive difference. So he personally went into bat, with the headmistress and said, you've got to let this person, move and go and take art, because this person is really, really talented. And it was really interesting when I actually kept all my drawing books of that time. And I was kind of doing art, but it was like a secondary thing that I was going to drop. And the minute he said to me, you're really good at this, and kind of made me believe in myself, literally in these books where I've got things handed in and marked, I went from getting 2 out of 10 and, 3 out of 20 to, 19 out of 20, 18 out of 20. Wow. He was kind of going, where has this talent been? What have you been doing? So, it's really interesting, isn't it, that belief in yourself and having somebody identify that in me, and then so powerfully advocating for me at that time was incredible. That literally, I was going to be a lawyer, I tell you. I was off down that track. And suddenly I completely U-turned and ended up doing an arts degree and training as a designer and stuff like that, which, nobody saw coming. So I think, it's a really interesting, I try and keep that in the back of my mind when I sort of look at people that are, particularly young people coming through our business. It's like, what are their skills, and can you give them that belief? Because it's just so powerful.
It really is, isn't it? So was that a teacher that told you that?
The teacher, yeah. And my English teacher.
Yeah, the role of teachers is, I still think, is one of the most powerful, things in a kid's life. And that influence, we've all got stories, we've all got memories of teachers, both good and bad, I think,
Yeah.
that have
Yeah.
impacted
Real
us. So,
influences.
yeah, real influences. So you're right. And I think that looking at how you can influence other people, certainly young people, it's a responsibility, right? So when my kids were growing up, my kids are, they've sort of, I could probably say they've grown up. I wouldn't be far off. But when they were growing up, the boys, before they, buggered off to university, it was great. Their friends would all come around the house because that's what I wanted. If they were going to hang out, I'd want them to come around their house. And one of the things you do, you talk to them like a normal human being, and you tell them stuff that's possible for them. You sort of feed them courage, don't you? That's what encouragement is. I'm just going to feed you a little bit of courage. And it's amazing how you can see they sit up a little bit straighter, and they sort of feel a little bit taller. And you just don't know how many of those conversations are going to have a positive impact on people's lives. And so, really fascinating.
I completely agree. I think that support that you can give to young people and that belief is really critical. And I know with my own son, who's dyslexic and faces his own challenges at school. And, we always talked about, it being his superpower and, gave him a different way of thinking. And, when he got to high school and he was allowed reader-writer to do exams, he did one exam with a reader-writer, and he just, the marks were amazing. And I said, look at the difference. I said, you can use the reader-writer now for all your exams. He said, no, I don't want to do that. And I went, well, why not? He said, because that's not who I am. Yeah. I'm going to do this myself. And I was so proud of him because he kind of acknowledged who he was, and he said, this is my path. I will succeed on my own terms. And, I just felt immensely proud that he knew enough about who he was to be able to do that. So...
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah. Well, the thing that I've known about you, Chris, is I think you've used the phrase before, you're comfortable being uncomfortable. And you do deliberately go out of your comfort zone. So this is probably something that you've instilled in your son, right? You actually wear clothes that make you feel uncomfortable, right?
Yes, I know, which seems a really odd thing to do. I mean, I love clothes. I love fashion. I've always dressed for meetings. I've always thought, what am I doing tomorrow? Do I need just something a bit more that's going to kind of make me feel? But yes, I do. I purposely sometimes choose something. I always choose things that I think I will look good in, but I often will go, oh, geez, it's quite bright, or, it's quite out there, or, and I do choose them because I think, being uncomfortable is a good thing to be. And look, there's never once that I've put on something that I've gone, I don't know, is this too much? That I've regretted. I did attend a board meeting, I have to admit, here, and everyone, all the senior leaders, when they go to all the guys have got their suits on with their ties and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, what am I going to wear? Because I don't just want to turn up in something boring. I mean, what's the point? I'm supposed to be presenting on the marketing. So I did end up wearing this phenomenal pair of floral trousers, silk floral trousers.
Okay.
But I did pair it with a very sensible black jacket, which I thought was, but I just thought, nah. And you know what? They didn't even flinch, but I'm sure they went, what the heck? But anyway, it was great. I felt amazing. And I got up and I thought I did a good presentation. But, it was sort of like, well, I'm just not going to go in and be what you think I should be. I'm going to go in and be who I am. And those floral trousers were very me.
Yeah. Well, this ties in nicely with something that I found out recently about you, Chris. Tell the good ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Tell the good folks listening about the tattoo.
Oh yes, that's funny. Yes, not many people know that I have a tattoo, and it's on my back, and even my mother doesn't know that I have a tattoo.
Well, let's hope she's not listening.
Let's hope she never watches the podcast. It'll be a massive shock to her. But yeah, I went, and I was actually, Cook Islands Tourism was one of my clients, and I spent a lot of time up in the Cook Islands at a time that my life was going through quite a few changes. And I met this amazing tattoo artist up there who doesn't tattoo everyone. He only does it for people that he feels like know what they want and want something with meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I went to him, when I decided that I was going to have a tattoo, I went to him and asked him to tattoo the values that I believed in, which was around, creativity was one of my values, and strength, being strong enough to look after my family and friends, and being true to myself. And really interesting, when he did the tattoo, I just said to him, that's what I kind of want. And then he kind of drew the design. And then he said, you got to remember, this guy didn't really know me. And he said, right, I'm going to do it as a circle, and all the parts of your values are in that circle. But he said, I'm going to create the circle as a flower, and there's going to be vines extending out, because I have a very strong feeling that you're in the point of your life that you're searching. And he said, the vines are searching. And he said, the values are in a flower which will blossom. And I was like, that's just crazy, So not only was it my values, but it was kind of at a point in time that actually he really acknowledged what was going on. And when you have tattoos, it's, particularly in the Cook Islands and a lot of Pacific Islands, they do it as a rite of passage. And because it is quite painful, it's painful. But the pain is when you're going through a tattoo, which might take a few hours to be done, and you're in that pain, you deal with it by going almost inside yourself, and it becomes almost like a state. And they use that as that transition often from, childhood to manhood or womanhood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it is quite an amazing experience to go through when particularly with someone like this, who was he was a tribal leader, and, he's very well respected. And like I said, he didn't tattoo everyone. He just did it. He did it around meaning and values and who you were. So for me, it was a really interesting experience to go through having that tattoo done. And, you come out the other side and you just reevaluate stuff, which I thought was a really interesting experience to go through. So yes, had the tattoo. Mother still doesn't know.
But what a great story behind the tattoo. It's better than some of the stories I hear. I got drunk one night and ended up with this on my arm,
No, it was quite considered. And it was a really interesting experience to have it done by somebody like that, in that environment, because it was done in the Cook Islands.
Yeah, true to myself. That's awesome. So, Chris, I could go on, because when we get talking, right?
I know. People keep looking at my window wondering what on earth I'm doing.
That was going, she's talking to Matt again, obviously. So I think we've got to the time of the show where we're going to do the random card question. So the rules are, you just tell me when to stop.
Stop.
There. Okay. So, here's the question. You chose this, Chris. I just want to point that out. Right? You said stop. If you knew you only had 1 year to live from today, how would you spend the next 12 months?
How would I spend the next 12 months? Okay, I probably would stop work. I wouldn't necessarily go and travel, but I would make sure I spent a lot of time with people that mattered to me. And I would make sure that I did all the things that were on my bucket list. But most importantly, I think I'd spend the time with the people that really mattered.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's really all you have. You like to think that you get to the end of your days and that your bed is surrounded by those people. I mean, I think that's a really special thing. So if I had 12 months, I'd just make sure that all my time was invested in those people.
Yeah, and I think you'd surround yourself with the people that mattered to you, and you would probably spend the next 12 months telling them how they mattered to you, and creating those memories, wouldn't you? I think it's an interesting one.
You talk about putting, sort of money in the bank, don't you? It's like you're putting money in that bank of memories for them, that they've got something to remember you by. Gosh, that was a serious one, man. I thought it was going to be...
I know, sorry. Some of the questions are a bit deep. Some of them are a bit playful. But it's I just think it's interesting because they're just random. They're not from my head, and so it's kind of like, oh, that's an interesting question. So spend time with people that you care about. And what's on your bucket list then that you've not accomplished yet?
I have done quite a lot of things, but I guess there's a few places left to travel. I am a diver, and so there's a few places that I'd like to dive still that I think would be really nice. So I guess that's a big part of what I'm doing. Don't know. I'm I feel like I've been really lucky in my life. I have travelled. I've been in a position to do the things that I wanted to do. Like I said, we dive, we boat, we fish. We do all of those things. So I guess I don't have masses of things that I feel like I've missed out on.
Yeah.
I look back at my life and it's been very varied. I've done lots in my personal life and my work life. I guess that's quite nice to be, sitting at a point thinking, well, I'm sure there will be other things that come to me as you go through life. You suddenly go, well, that looks really interesting. I'd like to do that. I guess maybe if there was one thing that I'd like to try is probably like to exhibit some art. I did that when I was studying. Right at the end of our degree, we had an exhibition, which is terrifying. If you've ever done anything like that, it's like you're just putting your heart and soul out there.
It's very vulnerable, isn't it? Very, very vulnerable.
Very personal. I'd really like to have some time to be able to go back and paint and create some art, knowing that that's probably very different to the art that I used to create, and then exhibit that because I'd like that challenge. I'd like to be in that uncomfortable place again one more time, I think, and that would probably be the most uncomfortable. I mean, when you work in agencies, you're always putting ideas forward, you're always putting yourself out there, and every idea feels very personal. I think art is even more deeply personal because you're not writing to a brief, you're creating something very much from your emotions and very internally to put out there for people to look at. So I think that would be my last, let's be really uncomfortable before we go.
Exhibit some art. Well, maybe then what you should do over the Christmas break is get the old oil paintings out, set up the old easel, start painting something, and then send it to your old mate in Liverpool, England. I have a beautiful space in my hall wall where I need to hang some art.
Do you?
So, yeah.
Excellent.
Just putting that out there. Just,
One of those things like you get from the auntie and you go, oh my God, if they ever come to visit, I'm going to have to hang that on.
Do you know what it is? This Christmas, because we're recording this pre-Christmas, if you're listening to this, it's probably coming out post-Christmas. Hence the reason if you're watching this, you see my Christmas jumper.
I was going to say, do you think that the jumper's a bit of a dead giveaway?
Yeah, it probably is if you're watching it. Yeah. And so every year, my daughter and I, we create a Christmas something, like a decoration. And this year we decided to create an advent calendar. And so I so far have done most of the work, I have to be honest. I've made this advent calendar out of wood, and there's 24 little drawers that has the sweets, and there's like 4 shelves, and the wise men go along the shelves and they get to the nativity at the top. And so Zoe now has to paint all kinds of weird and wonderful scenes and stuff on this, which she can do next weekend because her mocks have finished. The trouble is this advent calendar, well, it's quite big. Chris. So I had to drill 2 holes in the wall yesterday to put screws in to hold it up. So I need a piece of art to cover those big holes in my wall when the advent calendar is no longer up. So that's what needs to happen. Right. Chris, as you know, right, this show is sponsored by Orient Media, which specializes in helping folks like your good self set up and run their own podcast. So I'm curious, right? Imagine you've got the Ivers show. And out of the people that have impacted your life, past, present, future, who would be on your guest list to interview and why?
Ooh, okay. like 10 years ago, I wouldn't have said this, but I would say I'd like to interview my mother. Now, the reason for that is as I've got older, I've had more appreciation for who she is and the fact that actually she's an extremely independent woman and not of her generation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if she'd lived in these times, she would have been a very, very different person. Wow. And I'd be really interested to talk to her about that, because as I've got older, I've just gained that massive appreciation for who she was. And she followed that traditional path, but actually I think that could have been really different for her.
That's fascinating. So was it, you said up until 10 years ago, you wouldn't have said that. Can I ask why?
I think it's an age thing. I think as you grow up and have your own kids and you realise, but I just think, she's now living by herself. She lost my stepfather a number of years ago, and yet she's fiercely independent and she's determined to run her own life and do her own things. And as I've seen her do that, I've just gone, that's so crazy, because she's probably more independent now than she ever was. And I think that's remarkable when you're in your 80s.
Yeah, it is. It is. Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, Chris, it's been fabulous talking to you as always. I feel like we're just getting warmed up, if I'm honest with you. But I appreciate you've got a day of work in front of you and I've got an evening of drinking Christmas port in front of me. Watch some Christmas movies, put the fire on and all that. It's -4 for me today. What's the temperature for you?
About 24, I think.
It's just ridiculous. Oh, I love it. Love it. If people want to reach out, if people want to connect with you, if people want to ask you the question, which is probably on everyone's mind, why are you called the Ivers? What's the best way to do that?
Through LinkedIn. Just search Chris Ivers on LinkedIn.
Yeah, fantastic. And we will, of course, link to Chris's LinkedIn profile in the show notes. So if you subscribe to them, that will be coming straight to your inbox. Chris, listen, you're a legend, an absolute legend. And I love our conversations, and you make me laugh and smile, and you inspire me all at the same time. So thank you for coming on to the show. It's been brilliant.
Thank you. Lovely to talk to you as always.
As always. As always. As always, indeed. So there you have it, a great conversation. Huge thanks again to Chris for joining me today. Also, a big shout out to today's show sponsor, Aurion Media. If you are wondering if podcasting is a great marketing strategy for your business, do connect with them at aurionmedia.com. That's AURION media.com. And as I've said, we will link to them in the show notes, just as we will link to Chris's notes and links to LinkedIn. That's not easy to say. Be sure to follow Push to Be More wherever you get your podcasts from, because we've got some more great conversations lined up and I don't want you to miss a single one of them. And in case no one has told you yet today, you are awesome. Yes, you are. It's just a burden you have to bear. Chris has to bear it. I definitely have to bear it, and you've got to bear it as well. We are awesome. Now, Push to Be More is produced by Aurion Media. You can find our entire archive of episodes on your favorite podcast app. The team that makes this show possible is Sadaf Bain on Josh Catchpole, Estella Robin, and Tim Johnson. Our theme song was written by Josh Edmondson. And as I mentioned, if you would like to read the transcript or show notes, head over to the website pushtobemore.com, where you can also sign up for our weekly newsletter and get all of this good stuff direct to your inbox, totally free. That's it from me. That's it from Chris. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a fantastic week wherever you are in the world. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.